Welcome, crew, to What Are Your Three, a Channel 3 podcast where we take a member of the Channel 3 community, discuss 3 games of their choosing, go through some honorable mentions, talk about future games, and whatever else kind of comes across our minds. I'm Dan Tucker, and with me as always is El Ray.
What's going on, everybody? Today's guest, I think, officially creates a tradition where every school semester we're going to take one of Joel's students and bring them onto the podcast. So today we have young Logan himself, a Red Hawk gamer. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
We're excited to have you. I think these interviews with people who are younger than us, where we get to realize over and over again how old we are, is very fun because we get kind of a newer perspective on different games. So I'm excited to get into this. Let's jump right in. So, game number 1 on your list, Monster Hunter Rise, specifically the Sunbreak expansion, but I'll get into that. So, Monster Hunter, what system are you playing it on? Let's start there because this is a Switch original, but recently it kind of just like showed up everywhere now. Where were you playing this game?
So, I have been playing since day 1 of Monster Hunter Rise on my Switch. But like the whole Monster Hunter journey went from like Wii, I think like currently just sticking on the Switch with the new game.
So this is not your first Monster Hunter game then. So tell me about the series then. Tell me what you love.
The reason why it's here on the list is it's just like there's a bunch of games that you want to have a fun boss fight, but you don't want to have like a Bloodborne kind of boss fight where it's just like kind of like hours and hours like torture, just like be a 2-minute boss fight. But like Monster Hunter, what they do with their boss fights is they make them fun throughout the entire fight, and it's like a long like 10-15 minute fight, but it's like a spectacular experience just to hunt a monster.
So when you're playing, is this something you like to go solo about, or do you like playing with a group of people?
It depends on for me, I'm typically a solo player, but like I do have like friends I play the game with. Typically the rule for me in Monster Hunter is solo because I don't trust randos. Like random people joining my games.
Let's go back to that. The whole like you like how spectacular the fight is. Is it the graphics? Is it like the way that your attacks come out? Is it the style of the monster? What makes it so like beautiful? Like you said, different than like our Souls series kind of grinded out fights where I have to roll 1,000 times and hope for the best.
I think the best way I can explain this is probably with the new title update that just dropped on the 20th. Because they reintroduced a monster that hasn't been seen in the new generation in 8 years. And what they did with this fight, and a lot of monsters they do this with, is from older generations. When they bring them into the new game, they revamp everything about it. It's a whole new experience. And what they did with Amatsu, which is the new one that was added in the new title update, is it was a battle from start to finish of, wow, this is really cool. It can't get any better than this. And then they just go, here's something else that's completely different that makes the fight even more entertaining. And it just keeps building and building throughout the entire fight. And not only was it like that build-up was amazing, but the whole fight was just a beautiful experience to participate in.
And so let's stick with new stuff, kind of the new stuff that Monster Hunter's doing. The game, they call it Monster Hunter Rise because they kind of changed the concept, right? It was more of a vertical looking game as opposed to the older games were kind of linear. Did you notice that change? Did you like the change?
The change was amazing. I was debating about between going with Monster Hunter or Iceborne or Sunbreak to talk about, but the reason why I went with Sunbreak is coming from Iceborne to Monster Hunter Rise, is the new movement system changes like everything from exploration to combat. It adds this whole new element that makes it feel very fresh in this series I've been playing for a long time.
So why the Sunbreak expansion? Why not just Monster Hunter Rise? What was so great about this expansion that you said I want to talk about this specifically?
Because Sunbreak is the mastering. It's where it takes the base game that I played for, I think, like 200 hours, if I remember, before I added the expansion. But what the expansion does, it adds a whole other rank to the game. And that meant every fight that you had previously experienced, like from monsters from low or high rank, they get a whole new fight. So on top of the monsters they're adding, every fight previously added in the game gets revamped. And there's a bunch of new gear, new free content being added with Sunbreak. And the monsters that they added in Sunbreak are some of my favorites throughout the entire series. And it's monsters that I never had the chance of hunting before, because either the game would be I can't access the games currently, like Monster Hunter Frontier can't access that anymore. But they bring monsters from that into this new game that everybody enjoys.
So anytime there's an expansion, you have to go back now and kind of redo every boss. Are you currently playing? Are you still kind of going through this newest expansion, or have you beaten?
I'm in the end game content of it, and that, which is another reason why I like Sunbreak, is once you beat the whole story of the game, there's so much more to do after the main story quest ends. And it's a fun grind to constantly upgrade your gear, get new skills, try to make the best set, which then you can help use to speedrun more. There's a bunch of stuff they added to Sunbreak that makes like the end game grind really fun, and which is why I keep going back to Sunbreak like whenever I can.
Are you someone that likes doing like 100% on games, or is this just one in particular you just love this series so you have to keep playing it?
Depends on the game. For Monster Hunter, it's just like my go-to game. Like if I just have to sit, relax, and just play, I'm just gonna pick up Monster Hunter and just play it. I'm never gonna 100% it, because if I think I tried on Monster Hunter World Iceborne, and to this day I still don't have it 100%. So as soon as I tried for that one, I'm like, I'm never gonna 100% a Monster Hunter game. I'm just gonna play it for fun.
Join us on the Bucket and Hoosier Show, the podcast that's all about community and competitive Rocket League.
If you're new to Rocket League, it's a high-flying, fast-paced game that combines soccer with rocket-powered cars. It's a game that's easy to pick up, but difficult to master.
And that's where our guests come in. We're talking about the best of the best in the Rocket League community to learn about their journeys, strategies, and tips for success.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, we've got something for everyone. So sit back, relax, and join us as we explore the exciting world of competitive Rocket League.
Join us live Monday evenings at twitch.tv/Bucket and Hoosier, and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts to catch past episodes. Be sure to hit the follow and notification button so you know when new content has been posted.
All right, let's move on to game number 2. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, currently at a 4.3 on Channel 3, and I have to ask, is that a mannequin behind you? Or, like, I'm just curious after playing that game, if being in a hall full of mannequins, if you're just left in a dark room with mannequins, if you're okay or not. That's all I'm left wondering after that one.
Honestly, after playing Resident Evil 7, the thing I learned the most is don't trust anything you see. And I love that.
Did you also learn that medically stapling is not the best way to reattach a hand? That was one of the takeaways from that game. Don't just staple.
No, I mean at this point, like, I'm just shocked that Ethan somehow still attempts to reattach it. Like, I feel like in every game Ethan has been in, he has lost the same hand. His hand's just been abused in every game I think he's been in, and it's hilarious. Because it just, like, the game, everybody just like, oh, it's just accepted fact that Ethan's hands are just going to get screwed up.
Yeah, he's up there with the Skywalkers, Ash from Evil Dead, just the hand damage Hall of Fame, no doubt. So, so let's talk about this. Let's get into it. Sorry for making my snarky comments off to the side. So we talked about Monster Hunter. How do we get into this being the second on the list here?
So I kind of have a theme. If you kind of look at like who makes the games, is Capcom makes a bunch of really good games, and besides like Monster Hunter, I think the Resident Evil series is probably the best horror series you can possibly think of to play. And for 7, it's really the one that got me into the whole Resident Evil series.
So let's talk about 7 for a minute here. So 7, was that your first experience with Resident Evil then?
7 was my first experience with Resident Evil.
All right, so I have to ask then, so it got you into the series because 7 had another change in perspective compared to other Resident Evil games. How did that go for you going back to the others? Like, did you go back to 1? Did you go back to 4? Like, how did that work? Because 7 is probably the most out there of the 9 or whatever, when you count some of the stuff off to the side, whatever the count is total for the whole series. 7 seems like it's the one that's most on its own island from a perspective point of view? I don't know. Tell me about that.
So the 7 and 8 both went to the first person's perspective, and the reason why they really did that is instead of like playing as like Leon or Chris Redfield, like these really powerful, like really strong, amazing guys who like Chris Redfield apparently can now punch a boulder into a volcano with his bare hands in like Resident Evil 5, I think. And then we have, I just played through Resident Evil 4, and I kid you not, Leon will suplex any person in that game without hesitation. You got these two amazing characters, and then there's Ethan, who, unlike the other two, is this person you can relate to a lot. He is somebody who is just thrown into this really bad situation, and he's trying to just get out. He's more relatable, and they never show his face, and I think it's a good idea not to show his face, because it makes him more relatable, and it really puts you in his shoes more. And the whole change to the first-person perspective, it makes the game more terrifying. I think a lot more, because you never expected it to go to the first person, but when they did, it was great. It was amazing.
So how about the vibe for this one? Again, I really have to compare to the rest of the series overall, and it's funny because I made a joke about Evil Dead and the hand damage Hall of Fame here, but that's one of the inspirations or references I think that usually came up during the course of interviews was, taking that cabin in the woods, taking the isolation and kind of the smaller setting. Yeah, listen, the first Resident Evil I think was a little different though, because you had the whole mansion, you had multiple characters and multiple POVs and all of that. But how did this feel from like an isolation perspective? And again, is it? I feel like it's the creepier of the
100%. It is. Yeah. It is by far the creepiest one. I think a big reason is there's a lot of like horror stuff they implemented. Like the Baker family was a lot like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre family, with like it's just this really creepy group of people, and it just makes you feel like very insecure when you're around them. But then it's also more claustrophobic because it's like not like the mansion, but like their property. It's like blocked off in separate sections, and each section is uniquely different, but so claustrophobic at the same time. And it's just like in the middle of nowhere, Louisiana, which makes it even way more creepier. And the fact that I think the cherry on top of everything is, unlike everything else in the whole Resident Evil series, it's a whole new ball game because it's a whole new like bioweapon, hence like biohazard. So so all the old rules don't apply. This is just new territory, which I think really helped.
The other thing I was going to say about this game, so jumping back into it and talk about kind of the mood, the isolation, not as much action. I feel like the series really went from 1 and 2 were a lot about avoidance and jump scares and conservation. 3 is just one I ignore. 3 is like this black hole in the Resident Evil series for me. 4 is like where it jumps into an action adventure game, and like you said, Leon suddenly goes from like the sheepish rookie cop in 2 who's just trying to survive to, like you said, it's like Bruce Willis in the 4th Die Hard ready to jump off of a jet and all of this. And I feel like they went away from some of the action that was really popping in there and went into a lot more isolation, and it seems like you really vibed with that with this one too.
I mean, horror games are my favorite genre of games to play because like I think the feeling, because like horror games provide an experience that like no other game really can provide to you, and that's like the sense of like you're in a situation that you don't really have control of. You never get in real life. You can't really experience that, but a horror game you can experience that. And I think that's where like the big selling point of those kind of games are. And 7 does a great job with that.
All right, well let's continue on with the horror game conversation. We talked kind of beforehand and talked earlier about Sammy Sig being the prior representative from the university here. And sure enough, we're going to go back to Dead by Daylight. Visiting that game here again, 4.2 rated on Channel 3 here. Let's talk about... first of all, how'd this end up third on the list? Because most of the times where I've seen you streaming, it's been a lot of the Dead by Daylight and a lot of the team efforts there. But how did this end up with the third spot?
So... for me, Dead by Daylight, I've been playing like for years. I've been seeing like how it evolved from I've been playing this, I think, since it came out on PlayStation Plus. So about I think a year after it came out, which makes it 6 years old, which makes me feel old saying that.
We're not doing this, Logan. We're not doing this.
Sorry. But it's my most competitive game that I play because it's the only really big competitive asymmetrical game, which is a game when there's two different styles of gameplay that's happening, which I enjoy a lot. But I like the competitive side of the esports side of it that Dead by Daylight's coming out now.
So you mentioned the asymmetrical gameplay. So if you had to pick killer or survivor, which one's your side?
Currently, I'm a survivor. I used to be a killer, especially when the skill-based matchmaking actually affected gameplay. So, I was a really good killer back then. I played as Nemesis from Resident Evil. That's my main for killer, which is always fun to use. Still to this day, it's fun to use.
What are the benefits? What are the boons for Nemesis?
For Nemesis, he gets 2 AI zombies that walk around the map, which can help you kill survivors, but his power works on mutating, so he has a whip for a mid-range attack. And every time he either destroys a zombie or hits a survivor with his tentacle, his mutation goes up. And then once he gets to tier 2 and tier 3, he gets new abilities. At tier 2, he can break anything breakable on the map with his tentacle, which makes him great for chases. And then tier 3 increases the length of the whip by 2 more meters. But the best thing I love about Nemesis is he can hit over pallets, so when people pallet stun me and then proceeds to teabag on the other side, they forget that Nemesis can hit over the pallet, and then I can hit him over the pallet. So it's really fun for that.
Ray, I'll translate you. That's full DLC privilege right there. Ray, I'll translate that into other games for Ray. Pure DLC privilege.
As a DLC main myself, I'm okay with all of that. I'm very happy to pay for the good stuff.
I have every Resident Evil one because they had not only just one, they had 2 Resident Evil chapters in the game.
Yeah, Wesker. I know Wesker had his share of controversies, and for a while there, as far as his ability to kind of lunge at people and getting an extra lunge, and that throwing people off at the same time. Now, I have to ask you a question. I really have to ask probably all Dead by Daylight players, not how much do you like this game, but on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being okay and 5 being absolutely hate it, where are you at on that 1 to 5 scale of hating the game at the same time? I feel like there's a culture of yeah, there. Okay, putting the 5 up in the audio medium, no hesitation.
But no, there was no hesitation because there would be times where oh yeah, it's fun, and then the next game I'd be playing for 2 minutes because I would get chased by a Bubba with a chainsaw. He hooks me, and then he just stands in front of me for 2 minutes, and I can't even play the game. And I'm fun. So for me, it's there's either a good game or a game that makes me just want to stop playing, and that's every other game.
Yeah, that seems to be really the case here. So do you have a squad you normally play with? I feel like this is a game you mentioned the change away from some of the skill-based matchmaking, and I feel like this is a game that can be absolutely infuriating when it comes to the random lobbies. So do you have a squad you play with normally? How do you go about this? So
there'd be times where I would play duos, so that would probably be me and Sammy will probably be playing Dead by Daylight as a pair of duos, and then probably my other friends will probably join in. I just said Sammy because probably out of everyone else, that's whenever you have a friend online, and it's oh, if I invite them, they'll definitely join for this game. Yeah, I just send that to my duo. So there's that, and then for Miami, I play with a bunch of Miami people, especially on our club team.
So how's the structure for the club team work? I want to ask about that because we dabbled with that with Sammy a little bit. How does that work as far as a club goes? You play against killers from other places or survivors, or is it in-house? How's that work?
So Dead by Daylight and the esports scene is actually very new. They're just now the community cups that are happening this year are actually the first official Dead by Daylight tournaments that have happened since 2018. And for Miami, we actually are going to be, our club team is competing in the North American Dead by Daylight Cup that's happening on May 6th. And how the team's structured is you have 4 survivors and 1 killer. So you have one designated killer, 4 survivors, and they go against. You play against another team, except your killer goes against their survivors, and vice versa.
So it's like
that makes sense.
Kind of like a simultaneous match taking place. Effectively, you've got your offense and your defense playing separate games at the same, or separate games, whether it's at the same time or staggered with each other. Okay, fair enough.
And the winner basically comes down to the hooks, like the amount of hooks you can get. Whoever has more hooks in the end wins for.
Oh, okay. So it's not even like just I mean, when you're playing with survivors who are that skilled and organized and probably effective at communicating, it's probably not really, you're not going to see the killer win all that often. so hook count makes sense as far as having a score method goes for that. Okay.
I mean, that in 2018, the only official Dead by Daylight tournament, which was the 2-year anniversary escape tournament, their scoring was based off of kills and escapes, and the killer, like for points for a killer, was way more difficult than it is for survivor, because you can literally hook somebody 8 times and everyone can be on final hook, and then all they have to do is just walk out the gate and you can get 0 points. So like it was one of the big changes they had to make for the esport rules.
Yeah, all or nothing's not really effective on the killer side,
especially for an asymmetrical game.
All right, my last question. You talked about Nemesis being your go-to killer. Let's talk about the survivor side. Who do you go with from a survivor perspective, and why?
So originally I was Jill Valentine, but now I am Rebecca Chambers, because I figured if I'm going to play a character, I better play as one of the Resident Evil characters. And then I chose Rebecca because she's like the only character who hasn't appeared in like a new gen game yet. I'm like, I feel bad, so I play Rebecca because of that.
Hey, that reminded me of the one question I didn't ask about the club teams. Are there restrictions then on killers and DLC, and how does that work?
So, very interesting, actually. So how the whole tournament is structured basically is through several different rounds. Each round has a killer pool, so there'll be 4 killers to pick from for that round. And then you play on one map. So like the first round in the tournament, I believe, had Nemesis. I know it had Nemesis. It had Doctor, and then 2 other killers. And then it was played on the game, the Saw map. So that would be one round. And then the next round would be a different pool of killers to choose from on a different map. And it continues on like that to the very end.
All right, fair enough. Thanks for taking us on a little tour there. Let's go through. We walked through your 3. Now it's time to move on to honorable mentions. We're going to talk about a few games that didn't quite make the primary cut here. Now, one thing I learned after Sammy's presentation, or Sammy's discussion with the podcast here, was to take in the surroundings. Me, I have just the Street Fighter background carrying over for last night, but Ray and I joked at the end of it that we totally missed the Wii wheel on the back of her camera background there. I call yours out because over your left shoulder there is the original Alien poster from Ridley Scott's classic where no one can hear you scream. We're going to talk about Alien Isolation here, which is the basically, effectively, it works canonically. Alien game here where you play Ellen Ripley's daughter. And I'm going to start off here, so we're continuing in the horror genre. Who's your most dreaded enemy in this game? This is a game where you're not just pursued by the alien, but you got some other problems to deal with in this game, and we'll talk about.
It's still going to come down to like the alien itself is the most terrifying thing in that game, because it has. I have never experienced another enemy in a game where it learns.
It's smart.
There was a moment where it learned what the noisemaker was, which is like. Where it sounds like the noisemaker. So I kept throwing it. And then the third time I threw one, instead of going to the noisemaker, it went where it was thrown from. So I just see like this guy coming full speed down the hallway. And I'm just like, oh no.
Game over. I hated the hated the androids. That's why I felt like the xenomorph was a given. Like the xenomorph is going to make your life miserable. But to your point, like it learns. You've got your radar tracker to try and keep an eye on it, but if you use the radar tracker to try and keep an eye on it, it starts tracking you via the radar tracker, so you can't really use that much. It's chasing you into rooms, it's looking in the same hiding spaces as you're going kind of back and forth. But man, I hate the androids in that game more than anything myself. Probably because I just gave the xenomorph. I accepted the xenomorph.
Yeah, they weren't friendly. They weren't the androids like Bishop. Bishop's a homie. These guys were not homies.
Yeah, there's one android in the history of the entire franchise, and you referenced it there. The rest of them are all jerks. So, including 100%. This game. So,
by the way, I wanted to say this. I love the Evil Dead reference. By the way, as a big movie guy, I love hearing that movie reference.
Hey, yeah, that's. Listen, I have not played much Dead by Daylight. The times where I have played, Ash is a DLC character. I had to go with it, and that's even from a Fortnite perspective. I got to roll with that. It's always fun to use. So, but anyway, so alien wise, so tell me, because this is one of those games where I felt like I had to. It's a very dark game. I feel like it's one of those games I really had to turn the lights off, just kind of play in just the pure dark and just kind of get yourself. You talked about it earlier with the horror games, right? I feel like this is a prime example of getting yourself really worked up and getting into it. I feel like you can turn the lights off and really lose yourself in this.
100%. Alien Isolation does exactly that, because a lot of the time, like for me, I was so scared. Like when this game came out in 2014, I was so scared at the time to play it when I got to the level involving the medical bay that I actually stopped playing the game on the 360, sold the 360 and everything, and so I bought it again to beat it on the PlayStation, and I did a whole playthrough. But it did that. It was really scary, especially with like the amount of times like the alien kept going through and everything. But it made that atmosphere perfect, and the light, like having lights in the room, just ruined the experience. Like I don't think I watched a single time I watched Alien. I watched this thing a bunch. Like it's my favorite movie. I never watched that with lights on. You have to experience it in the dark. And I think the same thing applies to the game, where you playing in the light, it's going to ruin your experience.
Yeah, and I love both Alien and Aliens, but this is absolutely more in the vibe of Alien. Just Aliens is a lot more of a war film. This is just, you're isolated. For anybody who hasn't played this and is of the disposition to try a horror game or likes the movie, this is one of those games where like, no, they got the vibe of the movie. They put you in the movie really effectively in understanding that.
And they did a great job, especially the fact that like kind of like how, because like from the movie and the game, the horror there's going to be horror, but the experience you get with playing the game is so much better than like the horror you get from the movie, which is I think really what made Alien Isolation amazing. It had a great story to go off of and a great horror icon to follow up with, which was Alien. And I think like all that together, combine that together, you get one of the best horror games of all time.
So that brings me to my final question on the game. Are we, it's been the better part of a decade. It was been 9 years now. It leaves a little something there. You can end the game and be done with it. There's a bit of a cliffhanger. Do you think we're going to get a sequel? Someone's going to crack this back open again? What do you think is going to happen there?
I hope so. I mean, so far the last Alien game I played was Alien Fireteam Elite, which was a like mash. It was basically like Left 4 Dead, but instead of zombies, it was xenomorphs. And then like I was super excited to hear about the new Alien game, Dark Descent. Looked very promising. I was like, oh, it's going to be a sequel to Isolation. And then it turned out to be a top-down view
ISO action
game. Yep. And I was like, can we just get the sequel? Everybody wants the sequel. It'll be amazing if we get a sequel.
I feel like they've got to figure out a gimmick. I feel like, you can't just run the same play again. They got to figure something out to make it work and not be an escort mission, or not, going back and forth and almost having like a Metroidvania really worked for it, and the hiding and the alien and the androids and everything. But I feel like they gotta figure something out new, but I'm hopeful.
I mean, I've been waiting for anything new from the Alien franchise, period. Because like after Alien Covenant, I was like, I need more. This is like, a separate discussion. This is a separate discussion from my movie group, and I don't have the emotional fortitude to do it, because to this day, one of the last movies I ever watched with my dad was Alien Resurrection, and I'm still traumatized by how much I hate that movie and how disappointed my dad was. Excited he was coming home knowing I'd watch it with him from the video store, and both of us just hating that thing. Dude, the newborn was... Why was that a thing? Why was that a thing?
We're going to put Ray to sleep. We're going to end the movie discussion. Ray, jump in.
We've completely come off topic here. You can't...
Resident Evil 4, Ray, get in there.
Next on the list. We gotta go back. We're going back to Resident Evil. Resident Evil 4, the remake. Resident Evil 4, the remake, which, now it's going to be interesting because Resident Evil 7 is your first Resident Evil, and that's a first-person game. You come to Resident Evil 4, and I'm going to assume you have not played the original Resident Evil 4. It's only the remake, right? Or have you after this time?
I never played 4. I actually didn't know anything about 4. Because, what I do with the Resident Evil, especially with the remakes, is I don't look up anything about the story goes in the original. I like going in blind, which is, I think, the best experience anyone can get when they play a game. And I was very glad I did that, because I think 4 was by far one of my favorite games. I think I'm currently on, my 4th playthrough of the whole game. So...
Oh, okay. So you love this game. So just tell me about it. Tell me about why you love this game, why you're playing it 4 times over. Just let us know.
I think, especially coming up after the Resident Evil 3 remake, that being we had Resident Evil 2, great game. The remake of it, amazing, really fun. And then 3 happened, and it was really good. Except it was the whole game can be beaten in 2 hours. And when I first played the game, I beat it in 4 hours. I was very disappointed, and there wasn't much replayability. 4, however, had improved on everything. It was a very great, enriching story to play through from start to end. There was a lot of replayability with difficulties, the item shop to see all the assets they use and models, to just the gameplay. The whole combat system was very fun, but also wasn't I was this bad zombie killer, which you are. It's Leon. But it was the perfect blend of action and horror, though, because there was so many parts that I jumped. And I think it just did the best job of blending 2 really iconic genres of action and horror, and then just making this masterpiece of a game.
So, are there any moments that stand out to you? You played it 4 times over. You said there's certain things you jump out. Any kind of big or impactful moments you're oh wow, this here is why I love the game. This piece here.
Where do I start? Do I go with Del Lago boss fight, to the dog, freeing the dog from the bear traps? The bear traps in the beginning were hilarious. To Ramon, to... There's so many iconic moments, I could barely list. But I think, my favorite one of all has to be the learning about Luis, and his whole, story arc was really fascinating, I think. And he became one of my new favorite characters. I think that was probably my favorite part of the game.
And so going again, 7 to 4, you played 2 and 3. What do you prefer? Do you like the first person style, or do you like that third person over the shoulder kind of seeing your character look?
Honestly, I like them both, because with third person, especially with the best game Resident Evil that does this is Resident Evil 8, because it gives you the option now of playing the whole game in first or third person. And so I played that, and the difference really in this kind of applies to all the Resident Evil games is first person makes you feel more isolated, while third person you get the whole kind of open feeling, but you also realize how screwed you are, because usually in the third person games everything is bigger, everything is faster, because with the freedom of the camera. So even though it's oh yeah, you can see more, we're going to put you in more danger more often, is what it seems like. While first person really relies on the isolation, kind of you don't know what's going to be behind this door. I don't know. There was a bunch of different elements that both first and third person provides for the Resident Evil games specifically that I enjoy, and I honestly can't really pick between which one.
So have you played all the Resident Evils up to this point? Either remake or original, somehow, some way?
I surprisingly never played 1. And never played 5 or 6.
So, of the ones you have played, first of all, I think Dan looked like he was about to explode at that comment.
Listen, you have penance to make up. You got to go back and play 1. I know,
it's an entirely different thing. No, I have the remastered on 1. I just been waiting to play it.
All right,
I don't have the time right now.
Don't leave that on the backlog too much longer, because it's an entirely different game than these.
It is an interesting series, right? Where you don't have to play them in order, right? A lot of series you kind of want to play them in some sort of order. And somehow with Resident Evil, it's just pick whichever one you want and kind of enjoy yourself.
1 and 2, logically make sense, and then after that, they just They fortunately were smart
1,
enough
2,
to
and
break
3.
away. Yeah.
It's the whole Raccoon City saga, which is like 4 separate stories happening at once, which works because because it's like Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, and then technically 0, right? With like Rebecca Chambers.
Yeah, and that's where that's where I get into the dark period, because 3 I was just like I'm spent on this, which also Capcom did too. They said no, we're moving on also, so they were with me.
Yeah, so like that was the whole arc of like Raccoon City, and then like you had 4, 5, and 6, which is like the aftermath arc, and then now we're in the new arc of new bioweapons and stuff, which is 7 and 8.
So on this, which story have you preferred, or is 4 the game you prefer? Has that been your favorite Resident Evil up to this point?
I think like gameplay wise and everything, 4 is my favorite because it had the best gameplay. Everything felt so smooth, and plus the game looked amazing and gorgeous. Like it was so amazing. My gaming computer, which never had problems, like it could run Alien Isolation, it could not run the demo for Resident Evil 4. It was just so amazing. It just crashed my computer. My computer could not handle the awesomeness of 4.
Welcome to PC gaming in 2023.
Yep. I think like 4 though had the best gameplay of all the Resident Evils. But I think like I love the Raccoon City because there's so many different things happening, and it's like the whole what started the whole domino effect of the whole series. And there's so many iconic moments in the original like Raccoon City incident that I enjoy that you can't really recreate in the new games unless you remake it.
All right, well, let's go to your final honorable mention and talk about The Last of Us, where I'm going to start off and say, wait, why did it take us 6 games to get to this? Answer me that first. I'm just kidding. So let's talk. How did this one get the final coveted spot in all seriousness?
I think like really like all the games that I picked today, like the really top guys, like kind of like games that I think are like kind of important. Like Monster is like my most important, like it's my favorite game series of all time. Resident Evil, best horror franchise, best horror experience I had. And Alien Isolation is another great horror experience. But The Last of Us, I think is one of the best is probably one of the greatest story games of all time for any video game. And I think was the game that got me into like this career of like, this is what gaming can do, and I'm going to go down this route.
Yeah, it's funny because I think of Uncharted 2 and this go hand in hand for me, where Uncharted 2 really pushed cinema into video games or video games into cinema, whichever way you want to look at it. And yeah, this one really took that baton from Uncharted 2 and took the narrative side of it and pushed it even further. So I'm definitely with you there as far as that side of the conversation goes. So when did you first crack this one? Because this, we joke about Skyrim having 175 releases right down to running on people's Alexas. And I feel like The Last of Us got away because it was a Sony PlayStation exclusive, but it started with a 3, then you got a little upgrade with the 4. Now they've re-released it and kind of rebuilt it from the ground up and not just touched up the skins, but really rebuilt it with The Last of Us Part 1. When did you first experience this?
So I first experienced Last of Us probably shortly after Resident Evil 7, because for the longest time I was an Xbox 360. I was there in the Black Ops 2 era.
I forgive you.
All the way. Yeah. So I got a PlayStation 4 and when Battlefront came out. And that was like the day, I know exactly what day, because that was like that was when Sony got hacked and nobody could get into their PlayStations. That's when I got mine. I was like, great start to my PlayStation. Can't even use it. But as soon as I think I got The Last of Us, half-price books actually. It was on sale there for some reason for like $5. Don't know why. But I got that, sat down, and I played it, and I was just blown away.
First of all, I did not even realize that half-price books had video games. I did not know that.
Apparently they do, and they're very cheap, and they're like classics. Like it was like Last of Us next to Fallout 4, next to I think Black Ops 3. I'm like, those are 3 great.
Yeah, like the Ollie's bargain bin. They're just buying whatever's left over, laying around on the shelf, probably at large wholesale price discounts.
are for sure. But I'm like, what a great powerhouse of games we've got. Fallout 4, BO3, Last of Us, and I chose Last of Us, and I was glad.
Yeah, it's definitely a game where, I mean, I've talked before that probably the first half of the game I was like, whatever, and then she started kind of watching in the background, like, this is really good, and, you know, finally got to the HBO series, and she was sorely disappointed she didn't waste about 5 hours watching Pedro Pascal shovel through every drawer and look under every magazine for every potential casing of ammunition that was out there. I feel like they made some judicious cuts, but then the narrative while you're going through it, though, is really top tier and really builds, I think is the way to put it. Makes it very believable from that relationship, and again, it's really fresh in everybody's minds here coming off of the HBO success and kind of leveraging towards the second part coming up someday. But yeah, definitely a great
For sure. I think my favorite thing about the story of The Last of Us is the fact that, are we good, like, talk spoilers? I don't know if we can about the ending.
Listen, people, skip ahead. Figure it out. Skip ahead 5 minutes and work your way back. Go ahead.
So, like, basically, like, the ending of The Last of Us with Joel's decision and everything.
Oh, Ray, earmuff if you care. Sorry, I should probably tell.
It's okay.
Ray, take your headphones off if you need to. Okay.
But like, when you're playing a game, like, there's choices that you can make in the games. Like, oh, do I do option A or B? But The Last of Us was a game where, like, you're not playing as this character you make. You're playing as Joel. You're not making any decisions. It's Joel's decisions, and it really showed that, like, the whole story of The Last of Us isn't a game that the player can decide how it goes. It is a narrative. Honestly, like, very different kinds of, like, love stories of different degrees combined into this one story that the player has no control over what changes. And it's really fascinating seeing a game portray that, because I don't think we really had games at the time like really do that kind of storytelling. So when, like, this game came out, I was just blown away. Like, a game can tell this great of a story that you probably, like, only seen, like, every once in a while from a really good TV show.
Yeah, we were talking beforehand about your major and really understanding. I jokingly call it, or probably oversimplified by calling it, the anthropology of video games, and probably that study in empathy or in really becoming the character is probably going to be like a senior thesis project for you in this one, and understanding how the Naughty Dog team really got you in the shoes on this one. I'll just say, in the last spoiler conversation, and I don't know if you watched the show or not, I will say the thing that probably annoyed me the most in the show was seeing the final stretch there where, no, listen, those Firefly punks were in paramilitary armor. It was not as easy as Joel walking out of there one-armed. I died about 75 times trying to get through those punks.
Dude, that whole section in the hospital was just straight hell, if I may say. I remember playing that for the first time, and I think I had a stop timer next to me, just timing how long it took me. I think it took me 3 hours straight just sitting in the chair.
Mason Druckmann, I don't see the concrete barricades lined up there. I don't see the paramilitary gear. Pedro Pascal had it way easier than I did. I'm done, Ray. You're up.
Again, we keep going to this, not technically not film, but you keep putting Dan on these rants here about how the show should be done. But anyway, we're going to move on. We move on to the future games. And the one game you have listed here, looking forward to, is Hades 2, which is the correct answer, by the way. I know Tears of the Kingdom comes out soon, but the correct answer to future game is, in fact, Hades 2. So let's start with this. Did you play the original Hades?
I have. I'm actually still playing it. It's one of I beat Hades multiple times. I'm at the point where, like, I just had to, like, get all the get all, like, the hearts up higher with all the god's boons. But Hades is such a fun game, and it's really, like, for me, like, I don't like rage games. Like, I play them, but do I enjoy them? Maybe. But, like, Hades was, I thought, like, I avoided for a long time because I thought it was going to be, like, a rage game for me. But when I played it, it actually was like, this is really fun. It's actually not, like, annoyingly difficult. Once I figured that out, I fell in love with the game. And I'm excited to see where Hades 2 goes, because it was, like, Hades did a lot of perfect things. I don't know what they're going to be doing that's going to be different, but I'm excited because they're going to figure out a way to one up Hades 1, and I'm excited to see how they do that.
You answered the question correctly, which is I'm still playing, because that's true. There is no finishing this game. Every time I think I finished the game, I thought I finished the game about 4 different times, going through all the different plots and stuff. And then at one point I was like, all right, I have to do this very specific run to get this very specific character to talk to me. And I started like YouTubing sections of it. I'm 90 runs in and I'm still like trying to figure things out here. You're right, that game, it never stops. So we're fighting, I assume, Kronos. Because in the preview they say Titan of Time. They don't actually say it in Kronos. But I guess, right, that's the difference. We're fighting Titans now. Instead of kind of gods or demigods this time. Any guess? If we have one Titan, do you think we're gonna get more Titans? Or do you think we're gonna have different gods help us?
I honestly have no clue, because one of the things I like doing for future games is like kind of like keep in the dark until like official trailers come out. But I think for Hades 2 we're gonna see a lot. Well, besides like the new protagonist, if I'm remembering correctly, it's been a while since I looked up anything Hades related. I just been dealing with the whole new title update for Monster Hunter, so brain's all scrambled from that. But Hades 2, I'm excited to see if we're gonna get other Titans, because I think there's a lot they can do there with the different Titans. I'm wondering how if we're ever gonna see any of the original characters from Hades 1 in it too.
Ray, I gotta tell you, not to jump in on your game here, but just wait, not to get spoiler about it. Wait till round 100 when you have to battle Kratos. It's epic.
Yeah, the whole time he just screams boy.
Right, he just yells boy at you over and over again.
Boy.
I'm missing an entire part of the game. I'm with you there. The previews have given us very little. It looks, the art style looks very similar, which I love. Like, it's a very cool art style. But my only hope is that they keep that same level of storytelling. Because like you said, right, these kind of roguelike games can really get frustrating and you feel like, my gosh, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just fighting for the sake of fighting. But this game gives you just that little bit of story every single time. It's meaningful, right? Every time you lose, like, oh, I learned something at least. There's a point to it. That's going to be my only hope.
100%. I think, because like, trust me, tip for anyone who wants to play Hades, do not follow that up with Bloodborne. That's a big mistake, which is what I did. I went from Bloodborne to Hades, which was great because like Bloodborne punished you for dying every single time, but then like Hades at least like rewards you. Like even if you die, it's like, hey, you died, but here's some stuff that can help you on your next run. That's what I liked about like really the gameplay mechanics of like Hades and stuff, and like why I was able to really play that game.
All right, well, let's take a look here. We're going into one of the features of Channel 3 here. We're going to talk about a question from Channel 3's history that one of the things we didn't give you heads up we were going to talk about here. So what we wanted to do is take one of those quests and present to you to answer here. What we're going to ask of you is to tell us about your favorite piece of gaming equipment.
Oh, that is a toughie. It's like, if we... I'm trying to think.
Yeah, Ray,
I'll besides the PlayStation...
I'll point out while he's looking back there, you'll notice there's no Xbox 360 or Xbox posters back there. He's got the PlayStation buttons back on the wall there. I'm sorry. I don't know why. I'm starting with Ray. I don't know why.
Everyone makes mistakes. It's okay.
I mean, if we're talking about like which is like the best console I have played,
no, don't do that.
That's a different story.
Different story. Yeah, no, I kid. I'm just messing. I feel like getting a little sassy with Ray today. I don't know why.
I agree. The Xbox 360 was the best console you played. I agree with you.
It was 100% one of them. I don't know. PS5, a lot of good stuff with it, but I don't think the impact of like once you go from the Xbox 360 like Black Ops 2, there's no topping that. Like there's very little that can beat that. But I think like my best gaming equipment that I have here is probably the PS5. So
is the controller, is there a particular piece of gear, is it just the hardware as a whole?
I mean, for PS5, like I sell it on my PS4 in like my room here, but the PS5 did so much more improvements with streaming. Like I love the feature of like, there was a really cool thing that happened in this game, I wish I could have recorded that. PS5 just introduced this feature where you can just straight up record any gameplay up to an hour, and I'm like, that's amazing. And then they made a lot of big improvements, like they added Discord finally to the PS5, to different controllers, like my PS5 controller is broken. Yeah, I can still use my old PS4 controllers on the new console. And there's just a lot of like new accessibilities and UI features that the PS5 really included.
How did the broken controller not come up during Dead by Daylight? Because I assumed Dead by Daylight was responsible for the broken controller.
No, okay, so this is like a magic trick how I broke this. Apparently, the headphone, like I had a headset, not this one, but a different one, plugged into the bottom of it. And I'm just like sitting in this gaming chair playing Apex with my two friends. And the cord got caught on the wheel. And it pulled out the headphone jack so hard that whenever I try to plug in a new headset, legit, the right side would not have audio, but the left side would. And I know it's the controller because if I jiggle it correctly, the audio would sometimes come back. So I literally just broke the headphone jack part of it.
This segment brought to you by Bluetooth headsets. Okay, I'm good, Ray.
First of all, all my stuff is still wired, so you keep plugging things in.
Wired is the best. I had a Bluetooth one that broke on me. That was $300 gone. No reason why it exploded. Gone.
The last wireless thing that I depended on, and I won't do it anymore, was the Wavebird controller for the GameCube. Let me tell you, they've actually never gotten better wireless since that controller. And that's what I'm sticking to right there. And my Mad Catz third-party wireless GameCube controller with the AAA batteries and a see-through case. Still better than a Bluetooth controller today. I'm saying it now, and I mean it.
100%.
And with that,
ending on that,
we get to the last question, which is, what has been your favorite feature on Channel 3, Young Logan?
Oh, it has to be the daily 3 minigames. Every time I log on the Channel 3, there's always 3 things I like to do on it. I love playing the Enhance, the Target, and the Trivia. Every single time. I think it's like a fun feature to have that like most other sites like Discord, which are like really like why I enjoy Channel 3. It's like unlike Discord, Channel 3 actually has fun activities that you can actually like participate and play within the site itself, and I really enjoy that.
Well, which is your favorite of the 3?
Oh, it has to be Enhanced. 100%.
I was gonna ask which targets do you usually go for?
Joel wins again.
Yeah, Joel wins again.
For me, I don't play. No, here's the problem. The games that come up usually for Target, I don't play. I don't play Fortnite anymore. Like I used to play it before the new like I used to play it right before the whole reboot with the new island. I was OG Fortnite like time.
Well, so what? Game, like, I don't know. What game do we have to add? I can't do Dead by Daylight. There's no way to make those maps work because you just show like black sludge. I can't do a Dead by Daylight one. But what can I do? Give me an idea.
I mean, there was the occasional Horizon Zero Dawn was a great one, by the way. Fantastic. Another one that possibly is actually Monster Hunter with the minimaps. And then you also have the GTA, Horizon Zero Dawn, to Cyberpunk, to The Witcher 3. There is a lot of games. If you need help with coming up with games, I got you.
I'll tell you, someone's cooking up some Red Dead and some more Elden Rings right now.
Ooh.
But that The Witcher's probably a particularly good call out. Okay, all right. Yeah, Ray usually handles Ray's the Fortnite champ.
Oh, Dan, that's you.
Yeah, I'm the other category. So there's like 7 games in the other rotation that somebody's cooking up some Elden Rings and some Red Deads for me also now. But I may have to think about The Witcher in there.
I'm still impressed at the Mario Kart and that whole setup. I wasn't expecting all that. I think it's very cool.
Though honestly, like the fact that like every time I play like the like Target ones, like for the map ones. Like when I see a game that I know, I literally am like, oh, I might actually get this one. And the only one I think I've gotten was GTA, like for sure. I screwed up the Zero Dawn one, and I was so mad at myself for that because that was the only game I 100% in my life was Horizon Zero Dawn.
It's okay. I still screw up the pictures that I take myself. So
Hey, listen, you can
Tell you,
you can follow along with my Horizon Zero Dawn journey right now because today's target was me arriving at the border gates today. I'm like, oh, that looks like a good shot I should take.
Ooh, nice.
All right. And with that, we've made it to the end of another podcast. Thank you, Young Logan, for being here today. You can find the podcast at c3.gg/podcast, dropping every Wednesday morning at 3:33 a.m. Eastern on all the major platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. I am El Rey. Dan Tucker puts this all together, and executive producer Joel Willis. Have a good day, everybody.